Dave and Dujanovic.
As you probably know by now, because I've talked about it from time to time, along with our producer, Caitlyn Johnston, we are hosting a rather new dating podcast. I mean, it's been out there since June, called Dating at Her Age, and I feel one of our most important episodes dropped this morning, and we've entitled it "Stalked." Dating is exciting, it can be as you start to meet new people. But the fact that we are on dating apps and meeting perfect strangers online more and more, and this is how we date these days, we felt it was important to address stalking, harassment, and the red flags. And so, Dave, we just dropped this new episode with the help of the Salt Lake City Police Department and two members of the department who work domestic violence cases and stalking cases. And we wanted to just talk a little bit more about it with you.
It's such a great reminder because whenever I hear your topic selection, it makes me understand and realize how little I understand about what dating is like from the female perspective. Because I've never once been stalked. I've never once been harassed. I've never thought about it. I've never thought about precautions. But I do have a daughter and I have a wife. And even though, it's been a long time, I don't think about this stuff.
And Caitlyn, when we were talking to Sergeant Liz Johnson and also Wendy Isom, and Sergeant Johnson is with the Domestic Violence Squad, and Wendy Isom is the Director of Victim Services with the Salt Lake City Police Department, we found out it's women who are stalked, and it is also men who get stalked.
Yeah, and one thing that Sergeant Liz Johnson pointed out is she does think that she does see it, and she thinks that it is actually underreported and there's more that happens. But we have a soundbite if you want to play this.
Yeah. This is Wendy Isom, who's she's a victims advocate with the Salt Lake City Police Department, which they help victims of domestic violence and of stalking and navigate the criminal justice system. And Wendy told us something that I hadn't heard before, Dave, the difference between women who stalk men and men who stalk women. So listen.
I see a little bit of a difference in why stalking happens in different situations. So sometimes females are stalked more from an offender trying to gain power and control over that individual, where some of my male clients, it's more an obsessive love interest and less about controlling that person and more about notice me, date me. I want to chase away the other girls that might be interested. Really, there's any vulnerability. I have clients in the LGBT community who might not be out. And so an offender might be able to stalk that individual a little more easily with a threat to out them. It's often just the stalker taking a look at vulnerabilities, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and what is their motivation for stalking.
What is their motivation for stalking? That's a great way to think of it. And I guess we dismiss the men side of things, of men being stalked. But as she was describing that, kind of this obsessive notice me, date me, chase me, maybe sabotaging other relationships because you're so obsessed, I could see how that would be, how it would affect men as well.
Caitlyn, the other thing that we really learned a lot about is how much our social media can give up about us, even though we try to be maybe a little more vague, and that somebody is over the edge in terms of their interest in somebody else, will use social media to figure out like where we're located, when our birthday is. Maybe they send us unwanted flowers and that kind of thing. So you said you were going to go home after we recorded that episode and start looking through your social media. What did you find?
Well, I've already kind of started the process of trying to clean it up. But one thing she said, you mentioned your birthday. My birthday's out to the world on my Facebook account because it's just normal. And I never really thought in the past, I was like, I don't know why that matters. People can tell me happy birthday, but there's a lot that people can find out about you if they have your full name and your birthday, including your birth year. So I took that off. I took off any locations. Like my hometown was on there because I don't live there, but I was like, I'm just going to play it safe and not have that on there. I don't have my current town. And just another thing is being more cautious about what you post, because you can take a picture and your house with your address can be on it, and you just don't think twice about that. You don't think twice about it.
It's a selfie in front of your house and your address is right
but
there.
people can use that to piece things together, and it's scary. So I'm being more cautious about not doing that. I don't feel like I post my home ever, really, but like tagging your location on a story. I've done that in the past. I don't want to do that anymore.
When you're talking about dating, and this is something I really hadn't thought about, is so often I would go and pick a girl up at her house. And at what point, because I've heard you guys talk about this often, it's like, hey, we'll meet you somewhere so that I have the freedom to get up and leave, and I'm not beholden to somebody dropping me off. At what point do you start opening up? Is it on a second date or?
Well, I think that's even too soon. And I have allowed that to happen, and I regret it. And I think it's case by case. I'm in a mode now where I will just continue to meet somebody at a public location until I feel extremely comfortable that I have a lot more information on who they are and how they act. And how about you, Caitlyn? What do you think?
I agree with that. It is unfortunate because I wish that it was like that, because I'm from a small town where we just knew each other, picked each other up, whatever. But we're dating strangers now, so you really have to take those precautions. I don't think I would feel comfortable second date, even third. It's just going to take some time. But something they both said is trusting your gut instinct. And if you get any sort of suspicions or gut instinct that something might be off early on, to really trust that. And so I think a lot of it is following your own intuition.
Yeah, they mentioned this, Dave, which I thought was a great thing to remember when you're dating. An offender or a person does not show you their worst traits on your first dates.
Yeah.
They're going to show you, that they're this great person. And so, but if you feel like they have this little jealous streak going, if right away there's just some things that are off, it's only going to get worse from their experience. And so peel away from that. In other words, in my world, run and keep running. But there are so many great tips and information in this podcast. It's called Dating at Her Age, and this episode is called Stalked, and it dropped this morning. It is more than an hour where we sit down and talk to two people who have worked domestic violence cases and also stalking cases and like electronic harassment, where you continue to get those unwanted text messages from somebody, even though you've cut it off or you feel like they're messaging you way too much on Facebook or leaving weird comments on your social media. And it's just a ton of information. I was actually listening to the episode that we published this morning, Caitlyn, on the drive-in. I obviously was there for the recording, and there I listened to the raw, but you've edited it now and dropped it on our Dating at Her Age on our favorite podcast platform. Lots of information. So, and honestly, Caitlyn, you did a lot of work on that. Great work. Really great.
And you can read about it. There's an article on KSLNewsradio.com that they've put up for us. So there's a ton of information. But I took a lot away from this conversation. I think it's really important.
Keeping ourselves safe while dating.